Good evening and welcome to episode 12 of Spooky Town Tales. It is me, your host, Morgan, and Jimmy Bug, who is currently wearing a pink, fluffy...
It's a good hat.
Is it a bear, raccoon? I don't know.
It's a drop bear.
I don't know what it is. It's got rainbow fluffy... It's one of the girls' hats. Glittery eyeshadow eyes. Mm-hmm. You look great. Welcome.
Welcome. I mean, hi.
You're dressed for the occasion.
Got to dress up.
And he's wearing pajama pants with T-Rexes in space. He's
set, ready to go, ready for action.
I'm feeling very intimidated tonight.
Sorry,
very intimidated.
I do apologise.
Anyway, how are you? Good week?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, we're bloody exhausted.
We gotta stop doing stuff.
We do. We do have to stop doing stuff. We haven't stopped for about a month straight now. We're biting off several challenges all at once. But it's good for us. We're young.
Yeah, that's what they say.
It's the only way to get to the top.
Straight to the bottom.
It's just keep climbing from the bottom. Anywho, tonight we have an exceptional show, I must say. I have been scouring the globe for some weird-ass, creepy stories for you all. Out of the box, out of the norm, not just your standard spooky ghost stories or UFOs. I have some really cool, weird stories. I've got your standard, awesome spooky ghost stories in there as well, because I just love, they're my favourite. But I've also got some weird legends in there tonight. I've got a very interesting story about a particular serial killer, which I had no idea even existed, and it's probably the most whacked out story I've ever read. I'm sharing that with you tonight. We've got stories of haunted roads. We've got stories of zombie roads. There's just, you name it, it's on tonight's show. We have no specific theme other than weird-ass stories. That's the name of tonight's show.
I've been waiting for you to do one like this.
Just weird-ass, higgledy-piggledy. Yep. Strap yourselves in. Pour yourselves a drink. Turn out the freaking lights, because some of these stories are going to freak you the hell out. Freaking. Are you ready? Are you comfortable? Prepare to be spooked.
Yes.
Now, I thought it fitting, as we are trying to keep the show local, that I would start with an Australian story tonight. But I will warn you, tonight I'm going all over the world. We're going as far as France.
Intercontinental.
We're intercontinental tonight.
Yes.
So I apologise if those of you who are tuning in prefer the local stories, but I think you'll still like the stories I've got for you tonight. So to start off with, I wanted to read you a little bit of information about a road called Lemon Tree Passage. Now, this is in New South Wales. The reason I'm starting with this one is it relays back to many stories that we've featured about our area.
Okay.
So I thought it would just be nice to start with something that ties in, and then I'm going to go completely crazy and completely off the normal.
Lull them into a false sense of security.
Yeah, just go, she's good with continuity. She's keeping it consistent. Not tonight, folks. So, Lemon Tree Passage is in New South Wales, and this is a bit of an urban legend, but it's a supposedly haunted road that will get your blood pumping. It's located in the suburb of Lemon Tree Passage, a suburb of Port Stephens, north of Newcastle in New South Wales. The road has long been subject to local legend. The myth goes that if you speed down this stretch of road surrounded by woods, you'll have a run-in with a ghost or experience some supernatural occurrences. So this is the legend.
Speed.
You've got to speed down the road.
Wow, that's
It's an invitation for disaster, is what
Yeah,
it bloody is.
straight
We
away.
shouldn't be encouraging hooning on this show. I do not encourage hooning,
no
just so you know.
hooliganing.
No hooliganising on the back roads. Sorry, just had a sip of tea there. Got to wet my whistle. So I'll continue on. So nobody quite knows where the rumour started. And it just became a very spooky hotspot. So it just obviously stemmed from one person telling one person, this happened to me, and then it just got out of hand. But many locals and tourists passing through have told of chilling experiences. The most common story told involve bright lights that come and go from nowhere and very nearly run many drivers off the road. Sound familiar? Skeptics have been quick to shut down the myth by explaining the lights could be a result of a combination of the twists and turns of the roads and car lights.
Sure, but
But there's a difference between
ones that run you off the road.
runs that run you off the road. There have been many cases and reports of these lights, so it's the same deal. There you go. So Lemon Tree Passage. If you live in New South Wales and you listen to this show, which I'd be surprised if there are some, there might be. Who knows?
Who knows?
If you are from New South Wales and you live north of Newcastle, I dare you to take a drive and speed down Lemon Tree Passage. And if you have an experience, write in. Let me know whether it's a big pile of codswallop or not. I'm curious.
Encouraging bad behaviour.
Now I'm going to transition into a really good, old-fashioned, my favourite traditional ghost story. So make sure you're somewhere spooky, folks. This is a good one.
Okay.
My uncle's house on a very eastern part of New York was said to be haunted due to the family that used to own it in the 1800s. They decided not to give it to the stableman and sold it instead. He and the maid were said to have haunted the place ever since. We always used to joke that you would hear people or things moving at night, but since the house was so old, we just would laugh it off. My uncle's friend had her and her sister stay over the house one night, and the friend noticed a maid bringing towels down the stairs when she woke up. She saw the maid again bringing what looked like a percolator down the stairs. She was so impressed by my uncle hiring staff. Subnote, he's a neurologist in New York City, so he has a habit of spending a little bit of extra cash.
Okay.
She went back to bed, woke up later downstairs to see my uncle and his friend just chatting. She asked where the maid went, and that she thought the maid was cooking breakfast. My uncle had no idea what she was talking about and asked what she looked like. The sister explained, and he laughed. Walked her to the living room and pointed to an old picture. She said, "That's the woman." My uncle replied, "Yeah, she's been dead for about 100 years." Isn't that a great story?
They're fantastic, those
I
ones.
love those ones.
Yeah.
It's a bloody beauty. That one I called Ghost Maid.
Having picture references, it's just
Yeah.
icing on the cake
It's
every
brilliant.
time.
Yep. Cop that.
Yeah.
So, do you own a cat? If you are listening and you own a cat, I just want you to imagine what it would be like if this next story happened to you. What would you do? What would your reaction be? I watched one of our cats being pulled backwards about 5 feet by her tail. She was walking through the dining area and suddenly was sliding backwards as if something was pulling her by her tail. Only there was nothing there. She freaked out and tried to run, but couldn't immediately as something held on for a brief second, then let go.
Whoa.
Imagine seeing that. What the hell?
What would you do?
There is a cat, of all animals, they're pure instinct. Like, oh, fuck, no, I'm out of here.
They hate everything.
They're not one to stand there and do a Michael Jackson.
No,
No.
they don't crack out onto the moonwalk.
No moonwalks here. poor kitty.
Whoa.
So the person who experienced this believes it was the handiwork of a little girl ghost,
Okay.
because she's had other things in her house that might have just grabbed the cat's tail,
Yeah.
which I have to confess, when I was little, I'm not proud of this. When I was little, we had a cat for about a day or two.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from. We never
Where
had
did it
cats.
go,
Where did it go? And my mum got it, I think someone asked if we wanted it, or I don't know. There was a cat.
Yeah.
And we were used to dogs. And I did pick it up by its tail.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to have a cat.
And it was so scratchy.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're horrible. So I just dropped it. And I felt really mean. But it landed on its feet. But I think that I've always beat myself up about that, looked back and gone, oh, because I was like, well, I can't pick it up any other spot. It's the only safe place to pick it
Everyone
up.
else has got claws.
Because it's going to scratch me and bite me. And I think that was the start of my cat phobia.
Now you're allergic to them.
And now I'm allergic to them.
Yeah.
And now I love them. And I want one. Isn't it funny how that happens?
It is weird.
Yeah, but I was terrified of them as a little girl because of that cat, because it was so scratchy and bitey.
Yeah.
And so I just picked it up by the tail and said, stuff you. I'm going to pick you up whether you like it or not.
We used to have this little white cat called Simba, and he used to hide out under your bed first thing in the morning. He used to drive you insane because as soon as you put your first foot on the floor, it'd claw you right in the ankle.
Wretched.
Yeah, it is
What a
like
way to wake up.
straight up go to attack mode. It's like
Morning!
Rah!
Goodbye, Achilles tendons!
That was the worst.
What a turd.
Yeah.
Now, it's time for me to break out the big guns. Now, I came across this story and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even... You can't write this shit.
No, you can't.
And this is a real person. So this isn't a ghost story. This is about a French serial killer, right? Yes, they have them too.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Now, this fucking guy, is the biggest piece of shit I think I've ever read about.
Mm-hmm.
What an asshole. If there was a law to be broken or a horrendous act to be had or done, he did it.
Just takes it to the next level.
So just buckle up, guys, because I kept reading into more and more about him, and I'm like, how can you get worse? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here's even more. His name was Marcel Petois.
Uh-huh.
And then I've written, this is fucking insane what you could get away with in the olden days. So I'm just going to give you a summary of what he got away with, and then I'll read you a bit of a history about who this guy was. So Marcel Petois was a serial killer, born on the 17th of January in 1897. He died 25th of May, 1946, so just after the end of World War II.
Right.
He was a French doctor and a serial killer. He was convicted of multiple murders after the discovery of the remains of 23 people in the basement of his home in Paris during World War II. He's suspected of the murders of around 60 victims during his lifetime, although the true number remains unknown. This fucker grew a beard and joined the police using the alias Captain Valeri, right? This is mid-murderous rampage, decided... They're going to get onto me soon. I'm going to grow a beard, join the police force, where he was assigned to none other than the case of Marcel Petois, his own murder case.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
He was assigned to catch himself.
Yeah.
And he got away with this for a long time.
Challenge.
Until finally someone went... Looked at the mugshot, looked at the man, looked at the mugshot, pull off the fake beard, oh my god, he's tricked us. This is not made up. This happened. He hid in the police force and was assigned his own case.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Is impressive.
Yeah. So here's a little bit of interesting facts about this guy. Not to mention, I don't know, he got off. I'm just going to read it, okay? At the age of 11, Pertois fired his father's gun in class and propositioned a female classmate for sex.
Whoa.
Like, shot a gun and went, give me some sex. So this is at 11, this fucking guy.
Whoa.
In his teenage years, he robbed a post box and was charged with damage of public property and theft. He was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation which found he had a mental illness, so the charges were dropped. No charges.
Right.
He's mentally ill.
Yeah.
That's not going to stop him. Oh no. So, there were later accounts made various claims of his delinquency and criminal acts during his youth, but it's unclear whether they were all invented afterwards because of how insane the story was. You know, maybe it just spiraled.
Yeah.
A psychiatrist again diagnosed him mentally ill on the 26th of March 1914, and Pertois was expelled from school many times. He finished his education in a special academy in Paris, July 1915. During the war, see, wars are very, very safe places for psychopaths to hide. So during World War I, he got a lucky break because it's a war. They wanted...
Everyone's busy.
Come on, volunteer, we need help. So he volunteered for the French army, entering the service in January 1916. In the Second Battle of Aisne, he was wounded and gassed, and thus exhibited more symptoms of a mental breakdown. So he got even more nuts after he was gassed during the war.
Wow.
So this psycho,
Yeah.
who's already been diagnosed twice with severe mental illness, goes off to war, gets wounded, gets even more psycho crazy, gets gassed. So he's got brain damage. He was sent to various rest homes, where he was arrested for stealing army blankets, morphine and other army supplies. As well as wallets, photographs and letters. He was jailed in Orleans in a psychiatric hospital, Fleury-les-Aubrais. He was then again diagnosed with more mental illnesses, but was returned to the front in June 1918 because they're like, look, we just need cannon fodder, just send him.
Put him at the front.
Put him on the front. This war of attrition. I mean, World War I, they were still just literally, let's run at each other and whoever kills the most
Last man
wins.
standing.
We'll just keep going till we run out of people.
Oh.
So, went back. He was transferred 3 weeks later after allegedly injuring his foot on a grenade, but was attached to a new regiment in September. A new diagnosis was enough to get him discharged on a disability pension. So, okay, he's nuts enough now.
Yeah.
This is silly. He's literally standing on grenades to get out of it now. So, this is, all right, this is just, there's more about this guy, okay?
Yep.
So, after the war, he entered an accelerated education program, which included war veterans. He completed medical school in 8 months. He became an intern at a mental hospital. He received his medical degree in December 1921 and moved to Villeneuve-sur-Yonne, where he received payment for his service, both from the patients and the government medical assistant funds. At this point, he was already using addictive narcotics. He gained a reputation for dubious medical practices, such as supplying narcotics and performing illegal abortions, and theft. So he was stealing from everyone.
Yep.
He stole a bass drum from a local band. He just stole everything. The list of stuff this guy stole.
Yeah.
So his first victim might have been Louise Delaveau, who was an elderly patient's daughter with whom Pertois had an affair in 1926. So she disappeared in May of that year. The neighbours said they'd seen him loading up his trunk, something heavy into his trunk, but the police investigated but eventually dismissed it as she was just a runaway. It's a pretty shit job on the police.
Yeah.
Probably why he's like, these guys are idiots. I can just go and join the police force, murder who I want, and say that my case is unsolved.
This is going to work.
So he also... it just gets even better. The same year, Pertois ran for mayor of the town.
What?
And hired someone to disrupt a political debate with his opponent. So he won. He was the mayor.
What?
This psycho
What a show.
became the mayor whilst murdering local people. In 1927, he married Georgette Lebois, the 23-year-old daughter of a wealthy landowner and butcher. So he's married rich somehow. He had a son in April 1928. So there were many complaints made about him, of course, about his thefts and shady financial deals. He was eventually suspended as mayor in 1931. So that is a good, let's see, when did he get voted in? That's a good 3 years reign of mayor, just taking whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not the mayor anymore. He still had supporters in the town that thought he was great. 5 weeks later, in October, he was elected as a councillor in 1932, but then was accused of stealing electric power from the village and then lost his council seat. Stealing power now, not just stuff. I'm going to steal the entire town's water. I don't need it, but I just want it. So he was attracted to patients with fake credentials and built an He attracted his patients, with fake credentials and built an impressive reputation for his practice. However, the rumours of illegal abortions and excessive prescriptions of addictive remedies in 1936, he was appointed with the authority to write death certificates.
Whoa.
So he could have killed people. I think that's how he got away with it for so long. He could kill them and then just write the death certificates and say, this is how they died. Oh, my God. So he got institutionalised that same year that he was given this right for kleptomania because his stealing got so out of hand.
Wow.
And this guy was still able to practice medicine. So this is what the world was like. I mean, this is what you could get away with back then. Hence I said, this is what you could get away with back then. Okay, so he's can it get any better? Probably not. So he got released, but then he performed a whole lot of tax evasion, got himself in trouble again.
Yeah.
He claimed that during the period of German occupation, he was engaged in resistance activities. And he developed secret weapons that killed Germans without leaving forensic evidence and planted booby traps all over Paris. He had high-level meetings with Allied commanders and worked with a group of Spanish anti-fascists, but there is absolutely no evidence to support this. This is what he claimed he was up to.
Yeah.
So it all came to an end in 1944, in March, where one of his neighbours complained to the police about a foul smell in the area and large amounts of smoke billowing from the chimney. Fearing a chimney fire, the police summoned the firemen who entered the house, found a roaring fire on the coal stove in the basement. In the fire, and scattered in the basement were human remains. In addition to those found in the basement, we also found in a quicklime pit in the backyard and in a canvas bag. So there was more in his home. There was enough body parts were found to account for at least 10 victims. Also scattered throughout the property were suitcases, clothing, and assorted property from the victims. So he'd just been doing literally his whole life. He did whatever he wanted.
Wow.
Yep.
That is pretty impressive.
Yep. So in May that year, he was beheaded.
Mm-hmm.
But he had to wait a few days because there were problems with the mechanism of the guillotine. So he even got got a couple extra days at the end there. Is that not the most incredible story?
That's pretty impressive. I'm very impressed that he managed to get his medical certificate in 8 months.
And became mayor even though he'd literally been diagnosed multiple times as a kleptomaniac, a schizophrenic, all these diagnoses.
Oh, that's just fantastic.
What an absolute son of a... He's a son of a bitch. Anyway.
That's insanity.
I hope I never meet anyone like you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I don't know how I'm going to top that, but I'm going to just keep going with these weird-ass stories because I've got so many more. I'm going to try and squeeze them all in. Yeah. So I'm going to take it back to Australia for a minute.
Okay.
Back to Australia. So, did you know that there's a Weet-Bix factory that's haunted?
No.
Supposedly.
Ooh.
Yep. It's been abandoned for years and it was also locked. But every night a red light would go on in the same room and would turn off in the daytime. Sometimes you could see someone moving inside if you were there late enough. This went on for years with no one stepping foot inside the building.
Wow.
That was eyewitness Michaela from Burwood, Victoria. So this is the Weet-Bix factory in Victoria, in Burwood. Weet-Bix might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think haunted, but in the town of Warburton, Here I am, every time it's telethon, I get cross with the Eastern States people not being able to pronounce Marangaroo and Girraween, and I can't even pronounce Warburton. Sorry if you're from the Eastern States and I got that wrong. A former Sanitarium Healthy Food Company factory is said to be the site of some supernatural goings-on. The factory closed in the late 1900s but has sat empty ever since. If there's one thing we know by now, is that ghosts love empty old buildings. And obviously, they love Weet-Bix.
Whoa.
They love themselves some high-carb breakfasts.
They're all Weet-Bix kids.
They're all Weet-Bix kids. I could sing the song right now, but I'm tempted. I won't. I'll move on. Now, this one creeped me the fuck out.
Good.
I like putting Jimmy on the spot, just shoving the phone in his face.
No
Good.
reference.
Good.
Good.
Good. Sausage. Bacon.
Avocado. Tell me the story.
Story. This is a little urban legend one as well, but with multiple people who have claimed to have experienced it, hence that's why these legends come about. Have you ever heard of Hug and Molly?
No.
Hug and Molly stems from Abbeville, Alabama. It's best to stay home when the sun sets in Abbeville, Alabama, if you want to avoid Hug and Molly's chilly embrace. As the legend goes, in the beginning of the 1900s, an oversized figure clad in all black began roaming the streets at night, looking for unsuspected victims. Once she fixates on someone, she hugs the person and screams loudly into their ear. Many people have recounted stories of being chased by what they believe was Hug and Molly. Local parents have even taken advantage of the story to help keep the kids in line. The town embraces its nighttime warden, proudly calling itself the home of Hug and Molly. There's even a family-friendly restaurant named after her. How the hell is that? That's
pretty scary.
like literally the whole town's like, yeah, she's here.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, kids, we better be home before the sun goes down. And here's another little description I found, because I was like, what?
Yeah.
So Molly's said to be a phantom-like 7-foot-tall large woman dressed in black with a large brimmed hat. About as big around as a cotton bale. Hug and Molly is said to roam the streets after dark. She will appear to children, squeeze them tight and scream in their ear. Other than this, she's said to have not harmed them. There are also tales of how she's hugged people to death. But that's just like hearsay. But several people have said they've been chased and hugged by Hug and Molly. So whether or not someone is dressing up and doing it, I don't know.
It would have had to have happened.
But come on, imagine a whole town being behind this.
Of all things.
7-foot giant woman hugging you and screaming in your ear. What kind of a town is this?
There's got to be some 20-year-old kids who have thought, we can run with this. This is going to be...
Imagine how many copycats there'd be.
Crazy.
Yeah. So the theory behind it is that Molly's the ghost of a woman who lost her child, and to deal with the sorrow, she would chase other children and hug them to like appease her sorrow.
Fair enough.
There is also a woman in black that is said to haunt the streets of Abbeville, but she's a different entity. So they've got Hug and Molly, and then there's another woman dressed in black that haunts the streets as well.
Ooh.
So there's 2 black-cloaked women, widows.
Yeah.
Here's an account from someone who's experienced Hug and Molly.
Yeah.
His name was Matt Gregory, and he was born in 1901, so this might have happened mid-century.
Yeah.
At the time of his encounter, he was a teenager. So there we go. Let's change that. That was 1920s.
Yeah.
And after work one day, he'd realised someone was following him in the dark. When he turned to see who it was, he could barely make out a tall black-robed figure in the darkness. As he sped up to outpace the figure increased its speed to match. This continued until he could see his home. He then sprinted up to the steps and opened the door and went inside. To this day, locals have these encounters quite regularly. They get chased by something in the dark. Could it be hysteria, though?
Yes.
I mean, there's a whole town behind it. Like, if you live in the town, or even if you're visiting the town, you're going to be convinced
That it's there.
Yeah. And you might just get yourself panicked. It could just be someone walking their dog, but in the night, oh my God, it's fucking wrong. Or there could be little shit teenagers who think, we're going to scare everyone.
Exactly.
So there you go.
Pretty creepy nonetheless.
Pretty creepy. Abbeville, Alabama.
What a way of behaving as a town.
I know, but I love that. I want to live there. I do. I'd live there in a heartbeat. Who wants to move with us? Come on, pack your bags. Now I'm yo-yoing tonight from overseas to Australia. So we've got another Australian up next, folks. Up next on the playlist. We've got another. This one is. We've had one similar to this in the past.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but this one is from the Central Coast. It's called the Hitchhiking Ghost. So it's very similar to one we've had. Whether it's a crossover, I'm not sure, but I'll read it out anyway because it's pretty good. Many have stopped to pick her up, and she sits in the back seat smoking, only to disappear when you pass the cemetery where she's buried.
Oh.
So that was an account by a local who lives in Richmond, New South Wales.
Whoa.
Along the stretch of where apparently this happens a lot. So between Magenta and Noraville, on the New South Wales Central Coast, the ghost of a woman wearing a long white dress is said to flag down drivers, hop in the back seat, but then disappear before the car reaches a nearby Noraville cemetery. Legend is that she was attacked here in the past, and while neither the story nor the ghostly sightings can be confirmed, it's still a good lesson into why you should really not pick up hitchhikers ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't pick up hitchhikers.
Yeah.
There's a reason they're out wandering. I mean, if they're visibly in trouble, totally help them out. Don't just zoom past a poor girl going, help!
Waving their arms around.
With an armadillo on her back biting her. Don't go past that. I know. I was trying to think of any animal and I thought of A first. It's the first letter of the alphabet. I don't know.
What's wrong with alpaca?
Alligator. I don't know.
Albatross. A bird.
I don't know, Jimmy. You know my brain doesn't function normally. Anyway.
Fantastic. An armadillo.
An armadillo. Maybe it's because I've always wanted to meet one.
That's true.
Cool. I've already picked the name out. And it's not going to just be a standard armadillo. It's going to be an albino.
Oh,
an albino armadillo.
That's all you want.
And his name's going to be Aloysius. Aloysius the albino armadillo. Yep.
Triple A.
We've got completely off track.
Sorry.
Now let's hit the zombie road in St. Louis. Outside of St. Louis lies Zombie Road, a hotbed of ghostly activities. There are many starey quarries.
Get some sleep.
I need some sleep. There are many scary stories.
You talk like me.
I've caught his dumb talkyitis. There are many scary stories stemming from Lawler Ford Road, its actual name. So it's not actually called Zombie Road. It's called Lawler Ford Road.
Pretty tough if it was.
Oh, yeah. Tell you what, those early settlers were pretty tough and hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
Ahead of their times. They patented Walking Dead years ago. They used to have to bash zombies just to get to school. Hey, I'm the one that put barbed wire around my bat first. You bastards.
20 occasions of snow, that's nothing.
I used to bash zombies on my way to school. Anyway, off track again.
Sorry.
I should start this one again. No, I'll keep going. So, Lawler Ford Road, there are sightings of Native American spirits wandering the stretch to the victims of train accidents, apparently seen there as well. There used to be active railway tracks there. They're not active anymore. Right. But there were apparently many accidents there. Della Hamilton McCulloch was struck by a passing train on this stretch of road.
Whoa. She's
said to have been seen on the road. In the 1950s, it became a popular late-night teen hangout spot, with various murders happening in the area too. It has also been rumoured to be the home base of a murderer named Zombie, who escaped a mental asylum. These days, the stretch has been rechristened as a nature trail, but it's closed once night falls, with hefty fines for those that dare to trespass.
Oh.
So the council closes it at night because it's got a bad history of there's shit goes down Zombie Road.
That's a pretty
I want to know more about the escaped mental asylum murderer, Zombie. Like, there's no more information. I'm gonna have to do a follow up on this one.
That sounds very 80s teenager. Don't go down there.
Don't go down Zombie Road.
There's an escaped asylum.
Yeah.
Psycho down there.
Yeah. It's very 80s horror movie. Yeah. That's a beauty. But I'm gonna look into that more because I want to hear more about this murderer named Zombie. Why was he called Zombie? There's got to be a reason.
More than likely.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna bring you more about Zombie. Let me know. Do you want to hear more about Zombie? I want some more feedback. It's been dropping off a bit lately, folks. Come on, pick it up. I'm doing my end. I'm holding up my end of the bargain. I want to hear what you got to say. All right, we're gonna go back to Australia again. I've literally gone.
Yo.
I'm doing it. The Bloody Mile, Shell Harbour, New South Wales. This road is located between Princess Highway and the South Coast Railway Line in New South Wales. It has earned the name the Bloody Mile for a good reason. According to local historical experts, 13 murders have occurred on this one stretch of desolate road, which makes it eerie enough in itself without adding to the numerous sightings of the moaning apparitions of the victims wandering aimlessly up and down the length of it. If you're a believer, it's worth a look. So, if you want to check it out, the Bloody Mile in Shell Harbour, New South Wales. If that sort of thing tickles your fancy. Yeah. Moaning apparitions, I don't know. Don't know. I'd probably like to check it out. I don't know. I'm going to finish up tonight with another awesome, just old-fashioned, good old ghost story.
The classic.
2 days after my grandfather died, the neighbourhood security guard knocks on our door on a Sunday morning. He told us an old man came to your house earlier, knocked on your door for half an hour, and finally left. When I asked him what he wanted, he told me he needed to say goodbye to someone he had never had the chance to meet. We were all stunned and had no idea who this old man must have been, or who he was looking for. When the guard came in, he shouted, "That's the old man," pointing to a picture of my grandfather. My entire family froze for a minute. I'm not 100% sure if the guard was telling the truth, but I almost like believing that my granddad wanted to say goodbye to my newborn sister before resting in peace. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Isn't that? I just thought I'd end with a nice one.
Yeah, that's really nice. Especially a random one like that. Like a security guard, someone so...
Saying, look, we saw someone knocking at your door.
Yeah.
And then we spoke to him and he said he was trying to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
To see someone he'd never met too, to say that. And there'd be a newborn baby in the house that never met the grandfather.
That's really cool.
It's a big coincidence.
It's a good one.
And again, with the photo, like to recognise, to go, hey...
Hang on a second.
That's the guy. Just like the one earlier with the maid. It's like, hey, that's her. That's your maid.
That one there.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Isn't that a cool one?
That's a good one.
Yeah. I had that once with someone. Yeah. Well, it was one of my weird things. Mm-hmm. And I kept seeing this man, but not seeing him. You know how I see it? I can see them in my head. I'm like, who's this memory that I have of this man? Yeah. And it was only ever when I was around her.
Yep.
And then I told her, because I was like, this isn't for me, must be for her.
Yeah.
And I described who it was, and then she burst into tears.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, but her dad had died a year prior, and I described him to a T, and I said, he's got like Spock eyebrows, and that was when she just burst out. I never met her dad.
Yeah.
And then I said, he's worried about you.
Yeah.
It was one of my weird little things. I know that skeptics out there will go, oh, well, so, but how many people do you know? You walk up to them, you know exactly what their father looked like, having never met them, to the point of the shape of his eyebrows, and described his face exactly. And I even described the shirt he was wearing, and she burst into tears. Yeah. That was super weird.
Yeah. And I have enough to be sceptical of it all when I grew up, but being around you long enough, you shouldn't be this coincidental. It's too much. Yeah. But it's cool.
Now I thought it only fitting, just as it's been all over the place. There's not been any personal stories in there tonight. I thought I'd chuck one of mine in. This is a goodie, as I'm getting excited about Halloween. And I know it's 2 months away, but I literally start planning usually 3 months ahead.
You're starting. You've been excited for the last month and a half.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, I'm a bit Halloween obsessed. I'd have the house. I would like Halloween to be all year round, but you just can't win all battles. So this story took place. It was Halloween, and I remember this because I recall carving jack-o'-lanterns after it had happened. So we were all out on our Saturday sports, and my older sister decided, she wasn't playing any sports at that stage, I don't think. She decided to stay home because she was having her friends over for a Halloween party that Saturday night. Yep. So I believe we were out I had T-ball in the morning, and then after T-ball we'd have my sister's softball game. So it was an all-day thing. Yep. So it'd be Callum and my T-ball matches, then my sister's softball, and then we were coming home. So Amber had been home pretty much all day by herself. When we drove up the driveway at about 3 in the afternoon, she was sitting out the front, white as a ghost, like on the little, like the footpath out the front. Do you remember Mum and Dad's old house? Yeah, of course. So it was an 80s brick house, and it was on the top of a slight hill. So the driveway, you could look up the grass, the front lawn, up to the house. So we could just see her sitting out the front on the step, and we thought she must have been locked out. First thoughts, because she looked really distraught. Or I'm like, oh my God, what's happened? So Mum and Dad dropped me off because they were going back to the shops with the other two, I think, wanted to go with them. Or maybe Callum had come in. But I just remember being alone with her and her telling me what was wrong. Yeah. And I think she did tell Mum. Sorry, it's a long time ago. So she'd said she'd been in the house and she'd gone into the kitchen and she felt this weird feeling and turned around and she said she just saw a nightie floating in the kitchen, like a glowing nightie, like an empty nightie with no one in it. Yeah. And what freaks me out about it is the way she described it was very similar to what my Grivey used to wear. Yeah, yeah. And she died that year. Yeah. So my first instinct was, I wonder if it's Grivey. Yeah. But I've never seen Amber so scared because this was broad daylight. This happened in the kitchen, and she says I've been sitting out here ever since, and because this is before mobiles, so she's refused to go inside to ring anyone. She's like, I'm just going to sit here till they get home. So she's been sitting outside. And so everyone else had come in and then gone, and she told them, and obviously, oh, don't be silly, you imagined it. But Mum was like, believed her. Yeah. But then they all went out and left us home, me and Amber. Yeah. And so Amber's friend Clive had rocked up. Yeah. They were all out the back, and we had the pumpkins out there, and then we were all out the back, and no one wanted to go inside because we were like, woo. And so Amber said she needed something in the kitchen. And she's like, you have to go get it, Morgan. Yeah. You're my little sister. I'm in charge. You go and get it. And I was like, I don't want to go into the kitchen. And I remember absolutely shitting myself having to go in and get this knife. But literally all night, all of us were terrified to go near the kitchen or go in the kitchen. I didn't see anything, but I ran so fast with a knife. Yeah,
didn't have a chance.
Because I was like, I don't want to see anything. But I just remember that. I'd forgotten all about it, and it was Halloween because I can remember having to run and get an extra knife to help with the pumpkin, a knife and a spoon to help carve the pumpkins with Amber and Clive. I remember her being completely terrified. I'd never seen my big sister like that. She was always the one scaring everyone else. Yeah. And she was petrified. So I believe that she saw something that day.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been Gravy just trying to give her a fright.
Fair enough.
Because it was during Amber's rebellious period. And so I reckon it might have been her going, "Oi!" So what are you doing?
That's pretty
There you go. There's a little personal story. Have you ever seen a floating item of clothing?
No.
No?
Nope.
Keanu Reeves has.
Has he?
Yeah. Did you know? Here's another little before we go. Keanu Reeves, when he was a boy, him and his sister were being babysat by the nanny.
Uh-huh.
And they were hanging out in a room. And he said they just saw a jacket, enter the room.
Oh.
With nothing attached, just a jacket. And then it disappeared. And then the nanny said something and freaked out. And then he went, "Oh, good, you saw it too." But Keanu Reeves has seen a ghost, and a jacket at that. So he has seen a floating item of clothing. So if you've had any experiences or weird stories or floating jackets, or you know anyone that somehow managed to become a serial killer and then join the police force and get given the time to cover his tracks,
Hunt themselves.
to then get a medical certificate so he can sign death certificates for his victims. What a guy. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please get in touch with me. I'd love some feedback because I haven't had much feedback of late. I've had some, but I'd love to hear if you're liking it or if you're not liking it, what stories you want to hear more of. I need your guidance, or even if you're enjoying it, I'd love to hear the good stuff too. Yep. So please get in touch with me. If you've got some stories or some leads, chuck them my way. We're still working on the cryptids episode. It's just a bit tricky planning logistics at the moment, but it's going to be a goodie, so please keep checking in for that one. That'll be coming up in the next few weeks. And thanks again for tuning in. This is Morgan.
And Jimmy.
Have a great weekend. Stay spooky. Bye.